In 577 AD, a battle would take place here, Durham Camp. Gorgeous view across to our west towards the Severn Estuary. It's a battle that would change the face of this landscape forever and its territories, because the occupation here would change from the British to the English. Now, we only have one very short record of this battle taking place, and coincidentally that was written by the people that were victorious. That is in the form of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and that paragraph reads thus: "Here Cuthwin and Celyn fought against the Britons, and they killed 3 kings, Coinmail, Condidon and Farinmail, in a place which is called Dereham, and they took 3 cities, Gloucester, Cirencester and Bath." So then the question becomes, did this battle actually take place up here on Durham Camp? Because this wouldn't have been built for the battle. This is an Iron Age hill fort, so built around about 1,000 years prior to that by the Dobunny tribe. And like today, they'd have had a beautiful view from here all the way across the Severn Estuary towards Wales. And you can even see some of the Welsh mountains in the distance there. And then of course we have the name. Well, this is now Durham Camp. Well, it didn't used to be. This used to be Burr Hill, Burrill. But the village just down in the valley there, well, that does retain the name. Or maybe the battle took place either in the valley just below there or down towards the village. Don't really know for sure. But more importantly, this is a document written long after this battle. So is this an attempt by the West Saxons to later legitimise their politics of that time and circulating stories of battles that never were? Either way, that battle, well, whether it took place or not, that gave us the formation of a long lost kingdom here in the United Kingdom. This battle would have marked the 4th recorded for Celyn of Wessex, potentially the grandson of Cerdic, who essentially founded Wessex. It's possible to map the progress he made through Wessex via these battles, and his name being related within various places. I always think if you sort of go down the side of a hill fort, get to the bottom as far as you can, you get a real good sense of how formidable that hill fort would have been, and maybe a reason of why they would have built it. This one seems to stand on a ridgeway looking over what would have been the Dobunny territory. Really good position. Importantly, for the West Saxons, this is regarded as one of the single most important battles. You see, we've had 3 kings we've never heard of before, and we will never hear from ever again. We've captured the cities of Bath, Cirencester and Gloucester all in one foul swoop. But most importantly of all is the territory. You see, in capturing this valley across us now, looking towards South Wales, well, you've split the Britons, because you've reached the Severn Estuary and you now have to the south what was the Devon and Cornwall Peninsula, and of course to the north, and you split that in half. In terms of advancements for the West Saxons, well, that was considered hugely important. And with that we have the start of Hwicce. So how exactly did we get Hwicce, and more importantly, why didn't it last that long? The area that we know Celyn to have conquered in 577 AD, well, that area thereafter known as Hwicce. Well, if we compare this to pre-Roman era of Iron Age Britain and their tribes, then there is a remarkable similarity between Hwicce and the Iron Age tribe of the Dobunny. Now, one of many ways in which we know these areas of the Iron Age tribes to have existed is the coinage found from those tribes. The Dobunny were no exception. In fact, they seem to have coins that separated the north and the south of their territory, and on some occasions it indicated a ruler of all of their land. Either way, we have a Dobunny map and we have a Hwicce map, and the similarities are there for all to see. But exactly how does that happen? Never ceases to amaze me how territories and boundaries and borders shape the landscape today from hundreds of years ago and give us what we still see today, hedgerows which could be hundreds of years old. And I don't think that was any different 1500 years ago. You see, when the Romans came here, well, they made civitases out of the areas by and large that were represented by the Iron Age tribes that came before them. And why would they not? In fact, this continuity, this Hwicce territory gives us real sense of how a Roman unit transferred into the Anglo-Saxon era. In fact, you could almost suggest that the Iron Age territory went all the way into this early Anglo-Saxon era. That's absolutely fascinating. And here we are now in Hwicce, and we have this lost kingdom that once was. The battle at 577, which basically started this territory, and well, we have peace from 577 onwards, but it wouldn't last long. So my journey now is going to head north to another equally fascinating hill fort to continue the story of this long lost kingdom of Hwicce. One of the benefits of making these films and sort of learning and telling you the stories as I go as well, well, the places we get to go and see. Up ahead is Little Sodbury Hill Fort. Never been there before, but on the map it looked like an absolutely gorgeous area. Many little quirks that are worth exploring. Even from here, it looks quite spectacular. Up ahead, not sure if I'm walking up sort of a ditch and a rampart there, or if this is just an old holloway. Too cold to look at the map. Now, despite Hwicce being overrun by the West Saxons, despite the West Saxons taking Bath, Cirencester and Gloucester, despite all of that, Hwicce still seems to remain its own province. In fact, Sims Williams writes that we have the Angles coming from the northeast. Now, if, as we're led to believe, the Angles are mercenaries, or at least collecting taxes for safety from the Dobunny, then they probably are not best pleased with the advances of the West Saxons. Okay, have a look at this. This is a hill fort. Iron Age, presumably in construction, but when you look on a map it looks very squared or rectangular, and when you look at it here, well, it doesn't look like it's using the contours of the land at all. In fact, all around me is a bit of a plateau and it's just plonked in the middle. No contour usage whatsoever. And then you look at the sign back there, because the sign tells us, well, the Romans used this and they refortified it. That makes much more sense owing to its shape and potentially its size, so that's good. The other thing the sign tells us is in 577 AD the West Saxons used this fort to overthrow the territory of Hwicce. That's really curious, because how do they know that just from a paragraph? Let's have a look in this hill fort. It looks great. 584 AD, just 7 years after the battle, and we have note in the chronicle of the West Saxons marching north through Hwicce. Well, that indicates to us that they didn't actually hold this territory in full, and they were perhaps some way in allegiance with it or allied with it in a peaceful way. Now, it would take a little while, but the tide would turn for the West Saxons. 44 years, in fact, 628 AD. Now, we read of a battle in the Chronicle, and you'd normally read the words like, well, they defeated them here, they won, they claimed this area, but we don't hear that. In fact, Pendra, the king from what would be Mercia, Anglian king, well, we hear that the West Saxons and Pendra came to an agreement. Now, not only does that sound like a loss, especially worded from the person that wrote it, but it's clear from the subsequent history that Pendra was in fact victorious. Hwicce now becomes a client kingdom of Mercia. But once again, Hwicce survives. In fact, much of its cultural identity does too. I love this hill fort. It's really curious. It's not curious, it's clearly been modified by the Romans, and it does look very neat and tidy. For the next 150 years we have relative peace in the area. It would take 25 years, but 650 AD we have our first known Christian king of Hwicce. Perhaps, in fact, we have a mix of heritage, Anglian in the north and Saxons in the south, and this gave reason for this period of seemingly no rule. Mercia may not have been too fussed. It had Hwicce as a sub-kingdom, but now Eanfurth may have been head of a noble house that had Saxon and British heritage, uniting this curious kingdom. We now continue to have a succession of kings, marriages into Mercia families, kings claiming to be kings without any authority. It's all really rather messy, but the point is continually made that they are all very much sub-kings of Hwicce. All that would change though come 777 AD with a man named Offa. Uhtred, Ernbert and Elred are kings, joint kings of Hwicce, 757 AD. Now, one of these refers to himself as Under King of Hwicce by the dispensation of the Lord. Now, in the very same charter that we read those words from one of the kings of Hwicce, we also read similar words from King Offa, almost putting him in his place. My undertaking ealdorman, that is, of his people of the Hwicce. And that's exactly how Offa now saw Hwicce. Long had gone the time when its geographical, its history, its heritage, well, all those aspects played an important part in the politics. They no longer did, and Offa now saw that Hwicce was firmly absorbed into Mercia, which now became one. And all the grand delusions of the kings and queens from before, well, they were now just referred to as the ealdormen. Now, from 805 AD, well, Hwicce loses all control and independence of its own lands. The Mercian king Ceolwulf saw the end of this time of kings to ealdormen, and 65 years on Hwicce, ealdorman titles pass to the royal house of Wessex, which now rules the surviving free half of Mercia. And of course, the Hwicce heritage now falls out of use completely. Well, if you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed this really quirky Roman hill fort, it's very neat and tidy, I love it, then you're going to love some of the videos that are just up here. And of course, if you did like this, I'd love you to click subscribe. We'll see you this time next week.